Hi, and welcome to another episode of Dungeons and Degrees. My name's Adrian,
And I'm Alex.
and today we have a special guest. Special guest, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Mike Trapp. I'm formerly of College Humor and Dropout. That's probably where you've seen me if you've seen me anywhere.
Yes, that's at least where I've seen you from, at least.
Yeah.
Alex
That's
has come.
mostly where I am. The people are like, where do I know you from? It's like the internet. I've been floating around the internet, but probably you haven't seen me anywhere else.
Yeah, most of the people I invite on, Alex has no idea who they are, so she comes in blind every time.
Hold
That's-
on. I have seen Mike Trapp's face. I did not place it, and I couldn't. And I was like, he just looks like somebody like I hung out with. Like, okay, like I've seen him.
Yeah, I feel like most people have this feeling of like, I've seen you on a Facebook video that I scrolled past very quickly. So I know your face and I have a vague sense of you talking to me and being around my friends, but I couldn't tell you exactly what video it was that I was watching.
Yep.
Yep, is that
And
exactly
my
it?
husband's name is Michael, so it's the Michael video that I think I now am like, oh, okay, that one, because it's in my life that it's relevant.
I stand by it. There's too many mics.
There's too many.
When I started at College Humor, I think there were like 6 other mics within like view of my desk. It's just untenable. we have to fix it. This is the biggest problem in the country today, clearly.
He is a false Michael, though. His first name is not Michael, so.
Oh,
Is it like a middle name that he's choosing to go by?
Yes, it's a choice.
This
Michael's
is
a
insane.
choice.
You have to tell him to get his shit together. That's crazy. There's too many other. Your first name has to be something so embarrassing that requires so much explanation to be like, just do Michael instead.
No, it's
awesome.
Frederick. There's nothing. It's Frederick.
It's fine. That's great. A kingly
Yeah.
name. A good.
It is a very. I think so, but his dad. He's a fourth.
Let us talk about monsters. The main thing I kind of wanted to hit up on is, one, we can talk about monsters in D&D at first and kind of the creatures and why, and then we can go into kind of like the mythos, like the more kind of real world, I guess, aspect, and why is it important just for us to kind of think and pretend and wonder all these creatures and what could be. So I guess, Alex, do you have any favorites of either myth or D&D or both?
Like, look,
Okay.
I am, as I most often tell everybody, because you can't see my face unless you do a weird Google search, in which case I don't know why.
It's because last episode.
I'm a white girl. So I grew up with a Greek mythology phase, as all white girls grow up with. And so, yes, but I look, if I'm going to be, I don't know, I'm really just stalling because I have lots of things coming into my brain.
Yeah, how could you choose a favorite monster? They're
don't-
all lovable.
Ooh,
They're all
okay.
great.
I don't know. I like a feminine character who's down to fuck with the world, right? Kill dudes. So I'm good with a siren. I love a gorgon. I'm here for like just general women fucking up the world. If that narrows it down and is a little more PC than probably that.
That's cool. I'm into that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I guess you have a type then, right? These are the monsters
Yeah.
I'm into. Yeah, no, I'm trying to stall. I asked you first because I just had to think about it. I know I had all week to prepare, but here we are.
Well, I do think that one of the things that, to me at least, that like I have so much fun like delving into monsters is in their like variety and diversity. Like before we started recording, we were talking about monster manuals, and like for me, like the joy of flipping through a monster manual is this feeling of like every time you flip the page and you see a monster there, it implies a larger world and this whole like way of living and set of abilities and powers and stuff that like you can sort of be transported to a different place with every different monster. So like choosing a favorite, to me, it takes away like some of the joy of it. Was like, oh, I like the collectiveness of it. This idea of like so many worlds encapsulated in one entity.
Like the story itself behind it, right?
Yeah, like the logic of, I really enjoy the like if this is true, what else is true kind of thing with monsters, where it's like, okay, you're saying that this is a monster that lives like deep under the ocean or whatever. It's underground. It's like, well, okay, then maybe like its eyesight kind of sucks because it never sees sunlight. And what's it eating? Well, maybe it's eating like weird fungus things. And like you start building out this whole world by following the like you start with one weird thing and just follow the logic until you build out this thing that like makes sense, even though it's not like anything you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
Do you ever think that's like what God did? Like, if we're talking about some sort of entity creating things, is that just like, you know what? I just want something that lives in the ocean. Okay, well, we've already established that things that live in the ocean need to have like smoothish kind of skin and fins, but then like, I'm going to put a fucking light on its head because why not? And then here we are with an anglerfish. Like,
totally. I think that like I think people who like monsters are also fascinated by animals for the same reason. It's like, oh yeah, this thing makes sense. And I also think that's why people are also like, the platypus makes no sense. It's like the exception to the rule, you know, where like everything else is like, okay, there's a certain logic. I've gotten used to the form of like a fish or whatever. And to like everything about a platypus is just like this. You were, if we are saying that is true, that God was like, okay, I've established some rules, I'm going with it, that was like the last thing made that was like, I can't think anymore, it's been a long day, I know I already established some rules here, but I'm just gonna, yeah, it's a mammal, it's gonna lay eggs, it's gonna have milk, but it doesn't have nipples, it's gonna be poisonous for some reason, I don't know, don't bother me. Like just yeah, it's a living monster.
It's like leftover scraps of words, just like, yeah, just put them together and make something, all right?
Totally. Like, pretty sure this is true. I feel like when explorers first went to from Europe, went to Australia, and we're talking about like, we saw this platypus, get a load of this thing, we killed it and we brought it back. People are like, this is fake. You sewed a bunch of bullshit together. This is a jackalope thing that you're trying to trick us with, and that totally makes sense. Like, it feels like it is a prank that some taxidermist pulled instead of like an actual thing.
Yeah, for sure. The one animal that I can't, or I kind of hard to grapple is like, I think it's called either an ant bear or bear ants. One of those. They live in like extreme, like Celsius and like heat and cold. They can survive all that. And I'm like, why can't we do that? There's this little speck of thing, and it lives there. But why? It's ridiculous, but it exists. Like,
you're talking about tardigrades. They're
Tardigrades?
Water bears, I think.
Water bears. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bear ants. Yeah. Sorry, I got my stuff mixed up. My animals. Yes, those things are so awesome. I just marvel at them, just how they can. I mean, they don't look too like particularly like attractive monster, but it's crazy.
It's because they look like dicks.
I'm about to.
Well, I think it is that like it's that extreme thing. Like we have this very narrow band of stuff that we can survive and stuff we can do. And so like anything that has the ability to like survive extreme heat or fly or like basically superpowers, you know.
Yeah.
Like animals are just superheroes. In some ways it's like, oh yeah, you can do this thing that we humans can't, and it doesn't. And that's incredible. It's incredible to see another living thing be able to just biologically do something that seems like it should be impossible.
Yeah, no, for real. I was just trying to think, like, we consider them superpowers, but like to them, they're just like, yeah, no, we all do that.
Yeah, that's how I get around, dude. Yeah, I fly. Get over it.
Superman, whatever. Oh
I rub
God.
my belly on the ground and I can move forward.
That's my superpower. Quit judging me. I think it's cool. Everyone shut up.
What a good start. What a good start to this whole conversation.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Sorry, I'm smiling too much.
Yeah, how dare you? So yeah, Adrian, do you have a favorite? Like, I love cryptids and stuff like that. So
I just liked what is it called? The Median lion. The main thing out of Mythos is just the punishments that the gods give like humans. That makes me so happy for some reason. And it's ridiculous. Like, I think his name was Tantalus, and he tried to trick Zeus like two portions of meat, one for the gods and one for humans. So he kind of fabricated it, put all these like good chunks on top and these bones at the bottom. Like, this is for the gods. And then the rest, he put like tattered pieces of pelt on top of it to try to disguise them and trick them. And for some reason, Zeus is like, I'm picking this one, but I know you're tricking me, so I'm going to punish you. And I'm like, well, just pick the other one. But no, he gets punished. And his punishment is he's forever thirsty and hungry. And he's stuck in a river, and every time he leans down to drink, the water recedes, and this plant that's in his reach, he reaches up, and then the branch moves away. That's my favorite thing out of Mythos, is just the punishments.
You like seeing people suffer.
Yeah, for stupid things. Is that say something about me? I don't know. I just think it's ridiculous, and I'm just like, well, that's human.
I think that's a good trait for a DM. I think that might play into effect that you are a dungeon master and in control of people's punishments.
I do think there's something very satisfying about ironic punishment, like that like sort of persists through all kinds of storytelling of like, yeah, you do something wrong and it comes back to punish you, but in a way that is specific to your wrongdoing. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that has like a certain cosmic logic to it that humans find deeply satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, there should be like this kind of like, oh, it's gonna come back. Everyone's like, karma's a bitch. It's gonna come back to you. Don't worry, it's coming. So like these stories are just like kind of this reaffirming that idea of like, yeah, I know it's in Greek mythology, but that feels so good that these guys are actually getting punished. And sometimes we don't get that in life, that people getting punished for what they get. Like my guys shouldn't have survived the Curse of Strahd as much as they did, but they just keep rolling too high, but whatever.
But then you could invent the logic to make that make sense. You build the story around that. It's like, well, I have to make this make sense.
Exactly.
So...
Yeah. The gods smile at you this time. Yeah, no, I just do love a classic Hydra. Just being able to multiply. I do love that. I just couldn't. Yeah. Yeah,
I think like those sorts of things are. Yeah, it's those like superpowers we were talking about. That feeling of like it's one specific thing that feels like, oh, I can immediately see the strength of this. I can understand why like chopping off a head and growing another one. It's like, oh, I can see how hard this is going to be to defeat, or like this thing breathes fire, or this thing is invisible. Like you give them that one thing that like the challenge is presented there, and your mind immediately starts building out all the implications of that. It's. I like fantasy because it is about like putting you in a different world, and each monster is sort of a chance to create its own little small world.
Yeah, I think that like I always kind of like make something difficult in one way, and I'll think of all the ways they can potentially be defeated, and then I'll make it so it's so like one, it's a little obvious. Like I'll give a hint, but the immediate danger is so great that their brains just go, fight, let's kill this thing. But like I did something stupid. I made it so that only one person could read this language on these shields, and it's just numbered, and they kept going after one guy over and over in this puzzle, and he kept dying and then reanimating every time, within 6 seconds, just keep going, pop pop pop. And they're like, why isn't this working? So they killed the guy with number 1, and the guy's like, okay, this is easier than I thought, and they completed the whole table. But it took them like 5 rotations of turns to figure that out, because I kept hiding the guy behind somebody and just doing something, just being a real dick. But yeah, in putting that into like a monster connotation, just like, how do you defeat this guy? They test trial and error. Oh, he's resistant to fire. Okay, well, that's screwed. Okay, now I gotta do something else. Them slowly understanding this creature that is, 1, in the monster manual, or 2, something that you created, and something about them kind of discovering that creature on their own is kind of satisfying as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think that like the moment you first see it's like the oh no, we're fucked moment, like if some shadowy figure comes towards you, it's like, oh, this is creepy. And then the moment it's like, and it sucks your life away and adds it to its own or something like that, it's like, oh, okay, I'm starting to understand the mechanics, and I'm starting to see, and like there's a certain horror to having that understanding.
Yes. Yeah, and like it's the slow reveal of like, oh, I didn't know he had that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, and he has a second stage. Oh, fudge. Fuck.
This isn't even my final form.
Exactly. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Adrian.
You a little quiet there. I didn't want to make you feel unwelcome.
No. I was just okay. So we have the idea of the creation of this animal, right? Of like, okay, logically, or this monster, logically, if it's in the dark, it could be blind, or it could have a great sense of smell and all of that. But like, how do you implement that into your actual campaigns? Like, what do you do as a DM? What are you looking for? How much of it are you pulling out of the monster manual? How much of it do you actually create yourself? You know, is that something that, I guess, either one of you, I just threw out a whole bunch of questions. So you're welcome. How much of that is something that you actually enjoy as a DM? And if you do, you know, how do you do it? And if you don't, where do you go?
Just wanted to let you know that Mike's limited knowledge of D&D is I don't know. Tell me again.
I'm an idiot. No, is the long and short of it. I've played a little D&D on Dropout's D&D show, Dimension 20, and I would used to buy like monster manuals just because I like the monsters and stuff. And I'm now playing on Zach Oyama's new D&D play show, the Rotating Heroes podcast, but I haven't DM'd any myself, and so my play is very limited. I mostly just like talking about monsters, and I'm happy to do that. But I'm happy to. I'll shut up when it doesn't feel like I can add to the conversation, and I'm happy to pontificate when it's when we're just talking monsters.
No, I'm here to talk. You know what? I'm here to talk monsters. That's fine. So
I can talk.
But I'm curious to hear what Adrian has to say.
I do. I got a thing or two. It's essentially playing to your skill set as a DM. You want to use verbatim the monster manual. So essentially, you want to be able to use it as much as you can. I have a player who knows the monster manual front to back, all the DM's books, and me, as someone who doesn't study up and likes to play off the wall, really, he knows everything. He knows what I'm throwing at him. For the most part, he's pretty good at not metagaming, but I want to give him some sort of, fun, some new, that feeling that we kind of described earlier of like, oh, he has this, oh, he has that. So like, vampires in Curse of Strahd don't fly. Mines do. Why? Because I think that's terrifying as hell. And I give them some more powers, some less powers, just to even it out, but they're getting strong, so fuck it, give them all the powers. But don't make it so overwhelming that they're just succumb to this like, oh, this is the end kind of thing. Show them like they can work at it, but also make it hard for them. So when you work outside of the monster manual normally and create your own thing, something to the essentially the ecology of the world and just how it all kind of fits in, and make it make sense, make it look spooky. I mean, I keep talking about Curse of Strahd because it's like the only reoccurring game I play right now. But essentially...
So if you're at home listening to this podcast, please take a drink because Adrian has said Curse of Strahd twice.
I'm sorry. It's my only... It's the only game that's lasted through this pandemic, unfortunately. I had 5 starting off, and now I'm down to 1. C'est la vie. But...
Have you ever...
Yes,
have you ever... What's the farthest you've strayed from the monster manual in a monster that you've introduced? Have you made something fully like on your completely homebrewed, or have you taken something that by the time you changed it was almost unrecognizable from what it started as, or is it mostly just tweaks from the manual?
As of right now, tweaks. Anything that's like a player character, I kind of give them, or like the big bad guy, that's kind of, it's not monster-esque, they got just powers for the most part, but I kind of make sure that they make sense in the world. You can reskin them, but to me that doesn't give it the same feel. So like me creating them, like giving them a whole backstory, things that the players won't ever read, I put it into that monster. And then eventually I'm like, and now why does he have this power? Okay, because of all of this and all of that. And so when I make the big bad evil guy for all the other games I've played, that's all just me just throwing pieces together from their lore. And that's how I usually make new monsters or new bad guys. For monsters, I kind of tweak it for the most part because usually, like I said, I'm very on the fly, but my players are getting smarter and monsters aren't doing as much things, or they're not scared. They're not scared. They've seen the zombie already. They've seen a werewolf already. They've kicked that person's butt multiple times. How do I make this guy different? They like to use the darkness spell a lot. It really F's my shit. And also, like, some of the other player characters who don't have that ability, so only 2 out of 6 have the ability to see in that darkness spell, and all my monsters are usually fucked. So then I'm like, okay, you know what? Doesn't say it in the monster manual, but I'm adding that they can sniff you out, okay? They've got these wolves have heightened smell. Or this bad guy that would get just annihilated, he has made a pact with the devil. Like, I need to introduce it. Like, I can't just like, well, they have darkness and they're just fucking kicking Strahd in the gut while he's like, I can't see. Like, I don't want that to happen. I want to be a dramatic ending and kind of give them something. So
I think that's also a benefit of D&D over say like a video game, where like you can sort of take something that would seem kind of illogical, like wouldn't the wolves be able to smell us or whatever? Like, you can build that logic back into it if it feels appropriate to the moment.
Oh yeah, for sure. They caught on to that. They disguised up as Strahd, and the next round I was gonna sniff them out so bad, but they have a freaking smell. And this guy was like, earlier in the game, he said, I sniffed Strahd. I'm like, why the hell did you do that? But he got me later. He's like, I know what he smells like, and he throws the spell thaumaturgy and makes him smell like that. I'm like, you son of a bitch. Okay, all right.
That's such a good thing.
I thought he was just being a weird creep, but apparently he had a plan.
I sniff Strahd's hair.
It was a real good PC gotcha DM moment.
I love using magic to change your scent.
Yeah, I mean, they use it all the time for like for dirtiness or smelling, or like they like, haha, he farted. I'm like, oh, you guys, okay, whatever. They're really like putting that theme of like, it's Curse of Strahd, but we don't care. Drink again, guys. But yeah.
I've never spoken to a DM who didn't have the tone of like driving an unruly family to the Grand Canyon, where it's like, I'm very happy that we're all on this vacation. I love you all, but also you need to quiet down in the back seat a little bit and stop pinching each other.
Yeah, no, that really fucking sums it up, dude. And like some days are just harder than others, but in the end, I love you guys. And I some days I'm just like, I've had a bad day at work, and I'm like, all right, for you, I'll do it. Okay, we're gonna try real hard. I'm gonna try my darndest. I love you. Let's do this. And usually by the end of the night, I'm usually in a better mood because they're all real good people.
Yeah.
From I've had to play with them for like 8 months now, back in March, so 9, almost 9 now. So
okay,
yeah, we've had a long relationship.
So did you start this campaign like right at the start of like lockdowns, basically?
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't leave that house for like 3 months. It's because I was living
you should have.
Well, I was living at home too, so like my parents still had to work, but I was out of a job because I was just a server. So like all the food went down. So I'm like, okay. And I just played a bunch of D&D, and then it collapsed into one, and then I finally got a job back. Then I got this job. I'm talking to the people, so it's fun. Masks on, everybody.
Masks on.
But yeah, that's my feelings towards creating a monster. I went on a tangent. Let's bring it back.
That's okay. But I think mythology itself comes from a really interesting place within societies of both showing, the weaknesses of what's going on, right? If we're going to talk about like Medusa, that there's 2 interpretations of Medusa, right? She is just generally evil and like turns people to stone. And you're like, okay, cool. Like that makes sense. Or you start talking about like what actually happened and how, she is really
she gets the shit into the stick.
She does get the shit out of the stick. Like, all that happened was that... Not all that happens. Let's not start there. Right? Poseidon rapes Medusa.
Yeah.
In Athena's temple. And then what happens? Is Poseidon punished? No. Absolutely not. Why would we punish a man for, having his way with a female who was just there? And then who gets punished in the end is the person who was raped.
Yep.
Have you
Okay.
read Have you read Circe by any chance?
I have not read Circe, and I have it somewhere.
Oh no.
Highly recommend it. It's a really, really great book. But it does, like, it kind of touches on some of these of like sort of like re-examining mythology, and the way it treats the character of Circe is so interesting, because it is this sort of, you know, she is presented as like this witch who's in the Odyssey, who's like out to like, you know, turn people into pigs willy nilly and is inscrutable, and this totally like sort of alien figure, and in the book it is this sort of like it's all from her perspective, and it is looking at her as like, well, she's this very liminal figure who kind of doesn't belong in any world and is trying to find her place there, where it's like she's the daughter of, you know, nymphs of a titan, so she's like the absolute bottom of like the deity totem pole, but she still has like semi-magical powers, so doesn't really fit in with like the mortal human world. And it takes a very like sort of feminist look at Circe and how we imagine her and how like the myths portray her, and it's just a fantastic book.
Awesome.
I will have to go pick it up because I love that. We just watched Mulan, like the new one, which I know is already has a lot of issues in there, but you know, talking about the witch character, she is basically controlled by the guy, and you're like, cool, awesome, like neat. But you know, steps away, but it's like, hey Mulan, you've got this chi, you've got this energy, you are one step away from being me. Like, you still have the possibility because you have the same energy that I do, but they called me evil, and you have this choice either to, you know, harness it for good or evil. And I guess maybe that's the loose interpretation of what was going on. But, you know, it depends on who's telling the story as to how this myth and how these monsters and things have come about in the world. And it is ever changing because we're looking at things in different lenses, which is cool. And I like that because, you know, we need to have an idea. But sorry, I'll stop.
No, you're fine.
Not to keep like hanging on the Circe train, but
No,
like
go ahead.
to that point of just like, you know, like re-examining things. Like I think one of the really interesting things that she does in that book is like the way she sort of like reimagines Odysseus, who like we're used to hearing the Odyssey sort of through, you know, seeing it through Odysseus's eyes, and being able to sort of look at it and be like, this guy has PTSD, you know, like that is sort of like that is his character. It's like, yeah, like you can, you know, you're used to seeing, it's like, oh, he's so clever, he made it through so many things, so many hardships. And it's like, no, like, let's look at this guy who's like, he was in war. He watched all of his fellow soldiers getting picked off one by one. He is violent, and he is like prone to snapping at when he gets upset, and he's crafty, but he's like, he has anger problems. And being able to take these sort of like grand myths that they all have this sort of like mythology and fairy tales all have that sort of like at a distance wash to them, you know, where it's like, it doesn't spend a whole lot of time in interiority. Like, you don't get a lot of time inside a character's mind, like what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and how like one step leads to another. And so to be able to like take these characters we're familiar with and be like, well, why was Circe so quick to turn Odysseus's men into pigs? Like, there's in this story, like there's a reason for that, which I won't get into, but it takes a very like, just because I want to avoid some spoilers, but like to be able to like look at it from a very character-based way, and I guess kind of tying it back into what we were saying earlier, like if this is true, what else is true? Of like, what would make a person like, if you accept that it's like, she's not just illogical, she's not just like out here to be evil and cackling, like there's a reason she had this reaction where like a bunch of men suddenly show up in her house and are eating her food, and she turns them all into pigs. Like there's a reason for that, and it's not necessarily she's an evil witch, you know. And if Odysseus acts the way he does, it could be that he is fucking traumatized and he's not dealing with his issues. And like being able to take that perspective is really interesting, especially if you grew up with these stories and love them.
That reminds me of this other book that, I mean, it kind of the idea of like the perspective and what kind of changes a person throughout their lives. There's a book called Animals and Their Curious Poses. I'm totally butchering that title. But there's like a collection of short stories from the perspective of the animals. And this one, they talk about this wolf of Gibeah. And essentially, this guy, who we find out later is St. Francis, he kind of tames him by feeding him instead of fearing him. So the line that kind of gives me this inspiration was essentially like, the only difference between a devil and a dog is hunger. This idea of like, the only reason you're this way is because of something that has happened to you, and you can become this other thing if, you know, that one issue is kind of solved or fixed. Kind of similar to like you saying about Mulan, where like you're one step away from being me. This The reason that this person is bad isn't because of like he's just inherently bad, which I hope we can say about most people. And it's something that has happened in the past that has created the way they're thinking now. And potentially, if they had that something, they would have been this other person altogether.
Well, to bring it back around to monsters, you know, like I really love the, like, on that idea of like, there's something that caused this. This is a reflection of it. I really love the monster, the Wendigo, which is a North American, Native American monster, but it's a reflection of like, it's like a creature of greed. It's a cannibal. You know, like you can become a Wendigo if you resort to cannibalism. And there's like multiple ideas of like what a Wendigo looks like and how they work. But it is, as a monster, like a perfect sort of allegory for greed and like never ending hunger, with this idea that like if you become a Wendigo, you are constantly hungry and you constantly want to feed and feed on other humans. And in at least some conceptions, when you eat, you grow in proportion to like the amount you eat. You grow taller, so you're always gaunt and you're always hungry. And even though, so you're getting bigger and bigger and more fearsome, but it's not, the food isn't satiating you because your appetite is now bigger. So you're constantly hungry and constantly getting bigger, and you need to consume more, but you can never actually satisfy that hunger that you feel. And that's like both like, it's like a terrifying monster to imagine, this thing that like it will never stop. It will always be hungry. You can come across it and it will try to eat you, but it's also a terrifying monster to imagine becoming. And so it's very easy to become if you like don't check your, you know, ask yourself, like it feels like, especially in like an era, in age of like sort of, you know, capitalism run rampant kind of thing of like, it's like, yeah, like are you being destructive in your greed, or like, do you actually need this thing?
Awesome. That's amazing. I mean, I've always heard of the Wendigo. I never really knew its actual mythos or lore. So that's cool to learn.
Yeah. And then if you love Tantalus not being able to get that food he wants, then the Wendigo's right up your alley.
Exactly. I was thinking that the whole time. Like,
Tantalus. Yes, another person who wants to eat but can't. This is my jam.
I just love that we get to learn some of these things through school. And kind of something I was kind of shocked, because one of my friends was showing her Hades, and she's from
United Arab Emirates?
There we go, that one. United Arab Emirates, thank you.
You got it.
She lives over there, and she's like, wow, I just like, when we were talking about the lore, she's like, yeah, no, I've never had the option to like learn about this. And I'm like, oh, well, I mean, it wasn't like a young school, this was in college. She's like, yeah, no, I'm in college right now, and that's never come up into like any sort of curriculum. So like, I think it's interesting that we have this ability to kind of like learn these stories, and not everyone does. And I'm like so interested in like, well, let me teach you. So I was super excited to tell her like who's Hades and how are they related, Zeus and all them. So I think it's so great that we have this opportunity to learn about these stories and kind of share them.
That's true. Although I do think that there is and like undue emphasis put on Greek mythology. No offense to you, Alex, because I also went through that Greek mythology phase, and my wife, and I certainly like gave my niece that classic like Greek mythology book that everyone gets when they hit a certain age. It's like, this is the story for the thing I'm getting into now. But it is so like stories, like mythology is like it's just a human thing, like every human culture like invents stories, and they all have monsters and stuff. Like, it is such a universally human thing, and there's some cool badass monsters in like every culture, and I really think like it would be very fun to just spend more time on any of the other ones. As much as I love Greek mythology, it's like, yeah, let's expand that though. There's lots more to talk about.
Oh yeah.
So now that we've brought up other cultures and things being in the same in other cultures, I am 100% addicted to TikTok, because it 100% just works with my brain. It's whatever. I landed upon a video about the fact that we have not, had a full skeleton of a T-Rex. And really, all dinosaurs are just made up ideas of what the fuck we think they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's my question. Is a T-Rex skull really just a fucking dragon because all cultures have dragons and we don't have a full skeleton because they could have had hollow bones in which that would allow them to fly?
Make dragons real.
Why not? It makes sense. I mean, makes sense as much as anything else in 2020, Just make it happen.
There's this book called All Yesterdays that is, I've been trying to get my hands on it since someone told me about it because I think it's just fascinating, but it kind of gets at that idea, which is that like we have bones of dinosaurs, right? But you don't have any of the fleshy bits. So we're kind of just like guessing what it actually looks like. And even our conceptions of that have changed as we've gone like, oh, actually a lot of dinosaurs did have feathers. They weren't just these like scaly green things. So, and then like colors or things that's like, well, what color was it? Those things just get lost to time. So there's this book called All Yesterdays that imagines alternate conceptions of dinosaurs, if that makes sense. So it's like, okay, like here's the skeleton, here's how we normally depict this dinosaur, here's 5 other ways this could work. Like maybe it had a big peacock tail, maybe it had like a big, like rooster waddle or something, and it just sort of shows all the different ways, all the different things that get lost in fossilization and decomposition, and kind of forces you to imagine dinosaurs in a different way that is equally as possible based on what we know, but is just not the way we typically imagine dinosaurs.
That's so cool.
I like that looking for this book, you also get recommendations for other cryptozoology books.
That sounds about right. If you're looking for this, you're probably also like, show me monsters.
Yeah, no. Eric, when you said like our perception of dinosaurs, I immediately go to that. Well, hair is not preserved, so you don't know if it does have like this big whop of hair on the side of a dinosaur's body. I'm like, that's ridiculous, but what do I know? I wasn't there.
Maybe T-Rex had like flowing Fabio hair. Like we don't know. It could like all this stuff that like just doesn't get preserved. And like take like elephants and like mastodons and stuff like that. When they first found like mammoth skulls, there's some people who thought they were cyclops skulls because like where the sinus cavity where the trunk connects is just this big empty cavity. So like you could look at that and go like, oh, that's an optical hole, like a big eye goes there. But like that's obviously not what it is. But if the trunk goes away, the trunk decomposes. T-Rex could have a big trunk, like probably not. But like there's things like that that's like it's kind of fun to imagine those things and see how limited our perceptions can be.
Yeah, no.
And isn't that just a reflection of how limited our viewpoints are always?
Sure. Really, is not racism the biggest monster?
Yes. Back at it. Like when you said trunks, I'm like, well, what other kind of fleshy bits are we missing through time? Like,
oh yeah, time has lost so many fleshy bits.
You don't know if these like appendages kind of split off into like these little tentacle things, but whatever. That's just where my mind went. Yes, Alex, I said fleshy bits, and you thought immediately that. I'm glad you're enjoying this podcast.
You
were complaining about time losing your fleshy bits. So it's natural to wonder,
Oh my god. Why do we always end up talking about fleshy bits?
I don't know. It's what I talk about, okay? I'm sorry.
It's your limited worldview.
Very much so.
Oh my god. I'm sorry. I'm a mature adult.
Yeah,
I
no.
can handle fleshy bits.
Heard. I mean, I can handle that. I don't know.
Oh my god, no.
Yeah, no. This is why we have the explicit tag.
Yeah. Sometimes the conversation veers into fleshy bit territory, and you just people need to be aware that that's going to happen.
Yeah. I mostly just say swearing. Because I never know which episodes I get into.
Right. But going back, I do think it is interesting to like Greek mythology tends to be the jumping off point for a lot of I guess, people that I know. So I don't know if it's like a United States thing or a Texas thing or just a basic white girl thing. But it's a gateway drug into this idea of other cultures and where those things, I guess, where those things stem from, right? We're talking about the Wendigo, which I fucking love. But if you think about like Native American culture, if you're eating your other friends, that's going to be bad for the collective, right? If I'm eating my grandma, I don't want that to happen, because then what if I eat everyone else and then I'm the only person and then I'm constantly hungry because I'm by myself? So yeah, I'm here for all of that. And I think it's very interesting, like the broader view of cultures within their, I got off on a tangent and then I lost it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
yeah, like using monsters as a way to sort of examine like cultural taboos and cultural values and things like that. Because there's some people who say that like a lot of monsters in a lot of different imaginations are mixtures of like humans and animal, and there's some interpretations that sort of say like, well, like these monsters exist across so many cultures because it's a way for humans to try to sort of like on a broad cultural level come to terms with the fact that like we are animals, and yet there is something that we feel at least separates us from other animals, like that we have consciousness and sentience and the ability to like build giant pyramids and shit like that like there is like this spark of the divine or whatever inside us, but yet we are also still very easy to kill and very much need food, and we shit and fart and have fleshy bits, and like coming up to reconciling those two things is like where monsters can come into play, of like imagining a man mixed with a horse, and like what is that space like between those two things.
Yep. And they deal with very human emotions. So, if we're going to talk about like revenge and I don't know, Grendel's mother, I mean, that makes sense, but let's make Grendel's mother a beast or some sort of hard to translate monster. But you done fucked with her child. Like, she's going to come after you, Beowulf. Like, that we can deal with. We understand that part. But yeah, I think that removal of the actual human part of monsters, you start to realize that we have a lot of emotions and that we just need to process sometimes those emotions in different ways, and some of them is turning them into something that is just a step removed, but we all know that those are real emotions we all have.
Yeah, it's a way of like turning, sort of allegorizing major life events that like are too raw and too close to you to be able to like really talk about. So it's like, okay, but it feels like a transformation. It feels like that you can sort of come to terms with it. Yeah. I'm going to recommend another book to you now, just because you were talking about Grendel's mother. Have you read the new Beowulf translation by Maria Davina Headley?
I have not read the new Beowulf, but I loved Beowulf.
You have to read it. It's so good. She goes into, there's a little bit of that of like, hey, let's look at Grendel's mother and imagine like what this is really like. The thing that really makes it fun for me, if you're like a language nerd, is that this new translation, she approaches it with this philosophy of like, it's like, hey, this is an old ass text, this is so old, and people normally translate it with like a bit of an antiquated flair, but you don't have to do that. So she basically like considered any word from the English language, whether it's like an old antiquated word or like modern slang, is like fair game in her book. So she mixes them throughout the whole translation to keep this sort of sense of like, this is an epic tale that like a guy at the end of the bar is telling you about this crazy guy he knew called Beowulf, and this is what he was up to. So it's like the example that a lot of people give when they're talking about it is like, there's this question, the first word of Beowulf is what, which is like a sort of untranslatable word. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just a sort of like, hey, I'm getting your attention because I'm about to tell a story sound. So like, in multiple translations, people translate this word differently. Like sometimes it's like low or like listen or something like that. But she translated, in her translation, she translated it as bro, to try to capture that like sense of like, bro, let me tell you this story. That's also like, it's kind of like, it's a little aggressive, but kind of friendly in that sort of like, I'm patting you on the back kind of way. And like, it immediately sets you off sends a signal that like, hey, this translation is going to be a little different, or some things are going to be a little modernized. And it's just a delight from end to end. If you're a fan of Beowulf, if you're a fan of like language and translation and the challenges of that, I definitely recommend it.
You got that down, Alex?
Oh yeah, no. My cart is slowly getting stockpiled.
By the time we're done, I'm gonna give you. See, you were spending your time running D&D campaigns over quarantine. I've just been reading books like a madman. So I'll just be recommending books to everyone.
I love it.
That is absolutely fine. I am always down for a good literary anything, especially when it does talk about language, because language is so important. It does have very interesting connotations. Beowulf tends to be a more masculine read poem, but there are lots of aspects that probably need somewhat of a feminine touch. And I think definitely the like, I'm sitting at the bar, this bro dog is about to tell me a story, and I can imagine my dad does that when he drinks. So like telling you some stupid ass story of part of it may be made up. Like it doesn't have to be real. He's probably just like telling you stuff. But I think it's interesting that it's both, told from that, and it's a woman or a femme, interpretation, or at least a little bit. Hopefully, it's in my cart now. So she talks about a little bit of that in the introduction. It's like, this does have like, it's got like this strong, like just this sort of like traditionally like hyper masculine vibe throughout it that is just like, yo, this is a tale of like fucking shit up, rolling in, getting treasure, rolling back out, being a fucking badass king. Like that's the vibe of the whole story. So she's like, well, let's like, I'm going to embrace that where it feels appropriate and like tell the story like that, but like with language that we today understand. Like if you hear someone talking like this, you have an impression of like who that person is and what they're talking like. And yeah, it's a delight.
Awesome. Sorry,
we've gotten way off track. I'm sorry. I don't know how how these normally go.
This is exactly how they go.
Meandering.
It's what we adore. I say awesome because I'm like, oh no, there's void, and then I tend to try to fill it. I'm not trying to push anything. I'm just like, okay. But yeah, I think all this is awesome. I'm listening and I'm just smiling this whole time because I can feel like how much you're like into this. So it makes me just kind of like that kind of vibe I'm feeling from it. So I'm enjoying it. So yeah.
Right.
Alex, did you have any questions? We're about to hit the hour mark. I don't know if I didn't want to keep Mike from doing anything.
We are at an hour. I think, no, this was a delight as always. I love recording. I love having new guests, and especially not D&D guests, because I mean I absorb information from every facet of everything. So I think even building up characters to have sort of more of a background and maybe reinterpreting what they can do and what they can bring to campaigns or storytelling or any of this, and it's just more information to pull when you are creating campaigns, and that's super overwhelming when you start to think about it like that. But if you're sitting there and you have people trying to fight other monsters and they can all see in the dark, but the monsters can't see in the dark, then you turn off the lights. Well, that makes sense. But how do you, as a storyteller, bring that to the next level? If that's what they're going to be doing, right? If that's what your player characters are going to be doing, what do you do to then fuck with them back? Because you can't just keep letting them do it. So why not? And then, get into the feels with like monster backstories, because nobody's going to want to fuck with somebody who has a very compelling story as to why they are angry or turning people into pigs. And then you move on. Yeah.
I mean, I humanized one of the monsters, and they all of a sudden it's like their swords don't come down immediately. Like, wait, should we? I just love that. Throw that into your game, people. If you humanize something, they start to think like, should we be doing this? It's really great.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, any last remarks? Anything else before we sign off?
No, I mean, thanks for having me on. I'm again, like, I don't know if anyone was tuning into this hoping for D&D tips. We went all over the place. We were talking about dinosaurs and translations, and I hope that whoever was listening got what they wanted out of this, and I hope that you got what you wanted out of from me.
Oh, I did.
But
yeah.
I'm happy to geek out, basically. Is the end of this, and thank you for
what we wanted out of you. We
got
it.
Perfect.
Yes, no, I mean, we start off with D&D, we talk about other stuff, so this is the usual flow, and wherever we go, because this is just a fun conversation, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I keep bringing new people that are usually associated to the things I watched, and Alex is like, I don't know who this is, I'm gonna just talk to him like a regular person.
That's great.
But yeah, so thank you so much.
I'm always
yeah.
that'll happen to me sometimes on actually, where we'll have a guest on and be like, I know that they have like a huge Twitch channel, but I don't actually watch any of their stuff, and I hope I don't say anything that insults them by like implying that I'm not watching their thing. So I totally get where that comes from.
Awesome.
Look, I had never watched any Dimension 20 until this Saturday.
That's totally fine. I never expect anyone to watch. I'm always shocked anytime anyone knows about anything I've ever done. So it's really more the exception when someone's like, oh yeah, I've seen your stuff. It's like, oh really? Great, cool.
Yeah.
No, it has been a running issue with all of our guests who then refer to Dimension 20, and then Alex magically gets quiet because I have no idea what anybody is talking about. But now we are here and loving it.
Yeah.
Great.
No, I told my brother that I was interviewing you, and he's like, no, you're not. You're a liar. I'm like, yeah, no, I got him. He's like, okay. He didn't believe me still, but we'll see. I'll show you, brother.
Tell him I said hi.
All right, Mike says hi.
Hi, Dante. Thanks for supporting your brother and believing in him when he says stuff.
All right. Do you want to shout anything out before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't a whole lot right now that you can see, but a couple things I guess I'll throw out there. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike W. Trapp. You can listen to me play some Dungeons and Dragons. As I said, on Zach Oyama has a new D&D podcast called the Rotating Heroes podcast that just launched very recently. So if you want to get on the ground floor, that's going on right now. And yeah, you can still watch episodes of Actually on our YouTube channel, which the URL has escaped me, so I don't know what that is. but you can do that there. And yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been a blast for sure.
And thank you all so much for listening. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at DNDegreesPod. We have just launched our Patreon, so get in on that action. Adrian and I are talking about one-shots and Q&As and merch and all of the fun things that come with a Patreon and having these wonderful conversations with you. Help us grow our listenership and recommend us to a family and friend. Give us 5 stars on wherever you can rate us, and only 5 stars. Otherwise, your baby brother will turn into a Wendigo and then try to eat your feet.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. My name's Adrian.
And I'm Alex.
Go have some fun.